Okay, so I was planning on doing the Tome Hattie next, but holy crap is there a lot of golden nuggets laying around that need discussing for the different dimensions of DBD. Rather than try to compress this shit into a 60-second video, let's just take a look at some of these little goodies hiding out in the tomes and cutscenes. In Tome 5, we have the Observer talking about Claudette and discussing how the entity definitely likes specific souls, and once it finds one, it just hoofs it around the different dimensions, grabbing them and throwing them into its fog basket. The Observer even notes that one of the Claudettes has memories that Claudette definitely should not have, and was not sure if it was an alternative Claude's memory or if it was just Claudette's creativity keeping her from losing her sanity in the fog. My favorite nugget of interdimensional bullshit is with the Tome 6 trailer. If you read Yui's lore, she had a lot of nightmares about
things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass.
In the trailer, we can actually see these different versions of Yui. One Yui became a teacher like her dad, another one lived to a ripe old age before getting sucked into the fog, and then there is this alpha Yui 300ing all the Yuis off of a cliff. Yui had a lot of nightmares where she became an Oni-like figure because she lacked compassion. This could easily be the alternative version of Yui, where instead of stopping in the middle of the race to help scrape that sexist asshole off the pavement, she instead kept going and won the race and lost her humanity. This is also how we've had Hattie in DBD lore as early as Tome 6, even though she was released as a survivor much later. In Tome 7, we even get a little taste of how deep the dimensional rabbit hole goes when Hattie's uncle Stefan is considering the theory that characters from stories and legends were actually real people somewhere in the infinite multi-dimensional universe, and that artists, writers, and other creative types were able to open their third eye to see these stories and scenes unfold. That's right. That means that those of you out there writing fanfic about Ghostface and Michael having a night of passionate, stabby lovemaking while the entity stares through the Haddonfield window may actually be opening your third eye and peeping in on the alternate dimension's most dangerous bangathon. This theory helps to explain why the Looksee exists in the fog, why Pyramid Head shows up with Cheryl even though he's the personification of James's guilt, or how Ash Williams from Evil Dead knows that there's someone on the other side of the screen that needs to push the damn button. Yeah, I know the real reason is that they wanted money, but I'm just saying that the lore is at least slapping a band-aid on that shit. So Hattie is the big confirmation that we needed that there are multiple universes, since Survivor Hattie and Tome Hattie both exist, but hinge on one very important element: whether or not Hattie gets sick. Obviously, Survivor Hattie's parents die on their way to take care of her, leaving her with a lifetime of guilt that leads her to try and find out more about her parents, which the entity is able to use to bring about her downfall and bring her into the fog. Tome Hattie never gets sick, so her parents never die. They do disappear on an island reminiscent of how Felix and Elodie's parents do. Considering they were all members of a cult, Hattie was probably one of the pariahs, or at least she was on the island when Elodie peer pressured her friends to investigate the island, leading to many of the adults vanishing when they tried to save the kids. Hattie was only 5 and barely remembered any of this, giving the entity very little to work with to drag her into the fog. Even some of the monsters that crawled out of the entity's ass crack could not bring Hattie down. She literally crushes one of them with a giant stone slab and uses her powers to peer into another dimension for a seal for another monster that was actively trying to bite her. We find out in Tome Hattie's stories that those with powers like hers are more likely to survive an attack from the entity or one of its creatures, which definitely begs the question of whether Kate has some of Hattie's powers, since she is a musical artist and also survived a few attempts from the entity to drag her ass down a hole, or if that particular hole is an overlap and Kate picked up on a few echoes of previous Kates, which gave her a sense of deja vu. Considering Tome Hattie's stepbrother got yoinked in the Alps instead of Hattie, it's likely that we might see Tome Hattie eventually get dragged into the fog because of the guilt of losing Jordan. Anyway, we also got to see more into what in the hell was going on with the cult and the multiple other dimensions. Hattie decided to crawl up her benefactor's asshole because she keeps going to these places and almost getting dragged to hell. She finds out about the cult and that it is essentially using the government and military as puppets in order to prevent the different dimensions from destroying each other. They were chucking people through a wormhole to see what's what, and even managed to fish a person out of another dimension and bring them into their own. Anyone that returns from this wormhole is changed, either becoming confused, angry, or just losing their damn mind. Hopefully we'll get a little more info on what's going on as Tome Hattie's story progresses, but it definitely puts a little bit more darkness into the game. For example, if you look at the Resident Evil trailer where we watched Meg get slammed into a police car on loop, it's definitely shown that Meg bit the big one. Fast forward to the next Resident Evil trailer and Rebecca is hauling a very alive Meg into RPD. This is likely an alternate dimension Meg that Rebecca has rescued. Likewise, you might wonder what happens to the killers who failed to please the entity. It's entirely possible that the entity has also snagged a bunch of them and has them in reserve whenever a killer fails. This would also help to explain why Talbot Grimes got a hold of Trapper and experimented on him, but you might run into a Trapper that is just in regular overalls. After all of this, I guess the only thing I really want to say is, why the fuck hasn't Behavior given us Talbot Grimes as a survivor so we can have a Thunderdome of 4 Talbot Grimes versus Talbot Grimes, aka the Blight?